Welcome to Now TV on Berita Satu, where I, Blaise Hope, leave my teleprompter behind and enjoy the city I call home. Alison!
Hey, Blaise, lovely to meet you.
Good to meet you. You work for Now. What exactly is Now?
Basically, Now started off as a print magazine. We're English language, so obviously we appeal to the international community here in Jakarta. We're not just a lifestyle magazine, we're really more of a kind of community magazine. So we try to feature community events and focus on people who are doing really good things here in Jakarta.
Altitude sits on top of the Plaza office tower next to the Hotel Indonesia traffic circle. It has 3 restaurants, Italian, Australian and Japanese, where I'm going to eat for free. We start with the Italian option, Gaia.
This is our risotto with saffron, caviar and foie gras. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna get cracking.
Let's do it.
I think I've been here long enough that I just go straight to the spoon. Ah, the chef. Do you want to tell us a bit about what we're eating?
The dish gives to you a series of contrast. And if you can feel very well, there is also a line of bittering from the Prosecco wine when we flame the risotto.
Where are you from?
I'm from south of Italy.
How do you like Jakarta?
Very interesting city, I have to say. And it is in constantly evolution and developing. That is what I really like.
Now on to Australia, or rather the Salt Grill by Luke Mangan. The executive chef puts together some raw fish, and I step inside the kitchen to see how he makes my protein binge.
We use a lot of Australian products intertwined with Asian ingredients as well.
Somehow I'm still hungry. So have you been to Altitude before?
I have actually, Blaise. This is kind of one of my go-to places if I have visitors in town. So it has the wow factor with the view and everything. Jakarta is a great city if you know where to go. If you're looking for a European city, then you're completely in the wrong place. You know, this is an Asian city. It's not a European city. You won't find old buildings. You won't find piazzas. There's like an amazing nightlife here. There's amazing restaurants just like the one we're at here, and it's just a great lifestyle as well, you know, with the weather here.
Could I have some of your steak? As the day draws longer, I start looking for a lighter option at Enmaru. So Takashi-san,
Yeah,
what do you have for me? Hi.
nice to meet you.
You too.
I'm making ikasumi roll. Ikasumi roll is using squid wing.
Okay, awesome. I better get round to the other side.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Black teeth now.
Yeah. What does the future hold?
Jakarta now is different with the 5 years back then. Now is almost every month there's a new brand. The 3 conditions that you have to apply is you have to find a good location, number 1. Number 2, you have to find a good location. Number 3, you have to find a good location.
Well, that's it for Now TV for now. I'm Blaise Hope, and I'll see you next time.
we wanted to come back. We just came from Australia. It was a great venue last year to play here. Now we're playing on the main stage. It was a great opportunity to even reach out to more people, and the crowd was absolutely phenomenal, actually.
So we got a pretty big following here, and it's just insane. And especially when we play Bad and Booyah, our biggest hits. It's just
We have
like
a huge following here. I think Indonesia has a big EDM scene anyway, so
Yeah.
it's great to play here. They know all the songs, they sing along, they have a lot of energy. It's amazing.
This year is more crazy than last year. Yes.
Can you describe the DWP Jakarta Warehouse project in 3 words?
Crowded, crazy, and loud.
Happy!
Can we try to have an explanation?
It's like the party itself is really great, and then the DJs as well.
Hey, I'm here with Vincent. Vincent, how are you finding the Jakarta Warehouse project so far?
This is so amazing. The lineup is so awesome this year, and I'm so glad I can be here with my friends.
Is this your first time here?
yeah, it's awesome.
What would you say to everyone who's out here tonight and all your fans here in Indonesia?
To have fun.
So hey guys, we're Showtech. Thanks so much for all the support last over the couple of years over here.
Jakarta Warehouse was amazing. So see you next time. Booyah!
Former President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono was honoured this week, along with companies, for commitment to environmentally friendly growth at the annual Sustainable Business Awards. I spoke to Yudhoyono and Charles Vincent, President Director of PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting Indonesia, who organised the event alongside global initiatives.
I'm pleased to say that actually we have done a lot of things in ensuring that green growth, sustainable development can be well adopted by our government across the country, not only at the central level but also at the regional ones. And my message and my hope is continue what we have achieved so far, and if something wrong, please make correction on it, so we could really realize what we want to achieve. Having economic growth on the one hand, and it's important to create jobs to reduce poverty, and maintaining our environment on the other hand, by protecting the forest and other measures that in the end we could achieve both. If we have very ambitious target of economic growth, say 8, 9, 10, even though it is impossible to achieve now, then it will give a negative impact on our environment. So the key word is balance.
The main thing for the coming future, the coming 12 months, the coming 2 years, is actually the new 2 categories that we're going to implement, and is important for the companies. It's the climate change and business responsibility and ethics. We believe that sustainability starts from the top. And from the top, the right vision, the right mindset is actually driving the actions and the plan. So we like to bring this change more to the companies, both in the profit as well as in the non-profit.
Welcome back to The Perspective on Berita Satu. I'm Blaise with Pri Notowidikto of AMROP. We were speaking about the global mindset that you value in executives, and we started to talk about specifically cross-cultural communication, and this is what it really comes down to, having people from 20 different nationalities in a room being able to seamlessly communicate.
We hope to be seamlessly communicate. Let me illustrate that by giving you an example. There was a study done by Fons Trompeners. He's a cross-cultural guru, and he not only brings his research ability, but the fact that he has a heritage of French and Dutch and a little bit of English in his background, a little bit like you in your multicultural background as well, Blaise. And he did a number of studies, went all over the world, 55,000 managers. And one of the studies was that he had, and in fact he came to Indonesia, and I was one of the subjects. We were brought in for the whole day, and then we were given all these questions to answer. And one of the questions he asked was, and I'll ask you, if your boss asks you to paint, and this is in Indonesia, if your boss asks you to come to the house over the weekend and help him paint his house, how would you answer?
It would depend if it were a request.
Okay, it was a request. Would you, hey Blaise, why don't you come and help me paint the house?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, let's just say no.
Okay.
I'd say no.
Okay, you would say no. Okay.
Let's just say yeah, for the sake of
okay, you would say no. Okay.
Because I might want to do a favor.
No. But if you're hesitant, that means you're a little bit in the middle. But your first inclination was no. Now, from the study, it shows that the Australians, 98% of Australians' questions said no. No way, Jose.
No way.
For the Asians, especially the Indonesians, there was a break. There were 60% said that they would. And the reasoning, for you, the reasoning would probably be at the Australians, was that no, work is work and play is play, or my personal life is my personal life. But in the case of the Indonesians, as well as other Asian countries, they said that no, even though he is my boss at work, but he is still somebody I respect. And even outside, I must show him the respect. And I will help him paint the house.
Question: it's the limitations of authority.
Exactly. So that's one example. I'll give you another example, which I presented when I was teaching at Melbourne Business School in this class. And what was interesting was this case again by Fons Trompeners was, you're having dinner. You just had a board meeting. And everything is confidential. And then you found information there that could affect your best friend. And if that information was given to your best friend, she could offset having her company go bankrupt. Okay, and then as it turns out, you're having dinner with your best friend tonight. So what would you do in a situation like that?
It would be illegal.
You see, your first reaction was that it would be illegal because you are a board member and it's compliance. So there's three possibilities. One is it is illegal, so I will be professional, and even though she's my best friend, I must retain my professionalism, right? The second one, the extreme thing, is no, she is my best friend, and friendship is very important to me. Yeah, in fact, it's more important than professionalism or than following the legal. And then the third one is that, why, they're both important, friendship and legal, but I will present it to her like a wayang. You know the wayang kulit? You know,
Yeah.
you have the
Shadow
screen,
puppets.
the shadows,
Yeah.
and then you can watch, the audience can watch from the real wayang, or they can go behind the screen, the other side of the screen, and look at the shadows. So what does it represent? What is reality? Is reality the shadows that you see, or is reality what you actually see? So the second option, the middle ground, was to say how I will tell a story, and through that story my friend will be able to understand through my indirect inferences and through analogies and metaphors that maybe she should look at her business more carefully. Now, what was happening in this case, I had about 22, 23 different nationalities, and as usual, the Scandinavian says, no, I don't care if she's my friend. I said, what if she's your mother? Even if she's my mother, you know, tough luck, you know. But the Asians, again, and the Americans, to some extent, was interesting, said, no, I will try to tell a story and to try to, you know, actually, the Asians, I'm sorry, the Asians were split between I will tell her and I will go to jail for her. And the other Asians who had been exposed to a Western culture said, no, I'm going to tell the story. So again, it's not to say what is right or wrong in the cross-cultural, but it's again to highlight the importance of being clear on what values are important for you, because values drive behavior, and to accept the consequences of your actions in that regard. So, you know, this is where cross-cultural communication becomes fascinating in that regard.
And in a boardroom, really quite essential.
In the boardroom, quite essential as well. You know, in my board work, I have 3 different cultures in CIMB Niaga. You know, I have the Niaga culture, I have the Lipo culture, and I have the Malaysian culture. And then within there, you have different ethnic groups from across Indonesia. So, how do you interact?
How do you make them all work together?
Exactly.
All right. Well, we've got to hold, but we'll be back with the final part of this interview on The Perspective. Stay with us. Hi there and welcome to The Perspective on Berita Satu. I'm Blaise Hope, and with me in the studio are 2 people from Toastmasters International, Patrick Wei and Richard Sen. Patrick, Richard, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Let's start just with the basics. What is Toastmasters?
Toastmasters is the leading organization that helps men and women to become better communicators and leaders. It is 91 years old right now. Started in the basement of YMCA in USA by Dr. Ralph Smedley, and today we have clubs all over the world, 330,000 members in 130 countries.
So you're based in Singapore?
Yes.
When did Toastmasters go there?
About 30 years ago.
And what's the story been there since then?
Oh, we have, in Singapore, the number of clubs has mushroomed to 220 clubs in this little red dot island of Singapore.
So how does this work? How does a club work? What would an experience of joining Toastmasters be like?
We are a non-profit organization. Every club operates on its own, and we help men and women above 18 years old to communicate and speak in public and to become better and effective leaders. So every club, we need 20 to start a club, and there are a lot of companies starting Toastmasters Club in Singapore and even in Indonesia today. In every Toastmasters meeting, we have 3 segments. One is prepared speeches. When we sign up as members, we receive a few manuals, one of which is the communication manual, and the other one is the leadership manual. And we present any topic with written objectives. On top of that, every member, when he or she speaks, there is written and verbal evaluation to help the member become better, to look at their strong points and to continue to refine their speech making. We also have a segment whereby we have table topics. It's actually extemporaneous or impromptu speaking, and we can try that if we have time afterwards.
We'll definitely make time for that. towards the end. When you say evaluations, is this peers or is there an instructor?
They are peer. We are all peer evaluation.
Okay.
So actually, in giving evaluation is very good because when I give evaluation and I say, Blaise, I think you need more vocal variety. At the back of my mind, I also ask myself, do I have vocal variety? So it's actually giving and receiving at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all volunteers and we are all helping each other.
Richard, would you have anything to add to that?
Well, actually the evaluation part is very important. We always evaluate to motivate rather than giving negative views of the speakers. So it's very encouraging for all the Toastmasters to come and learn. We will never let down the young Toastmasters.
How do you, what systems do you have to kind of control it? I mean, you bring in a manual, you bring in a way for the groups to be run. How does that sort of police it so you know that people are getting a certain kind of experience?
Every club is different in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Every club has their own mix of members and leaders. So every club will have its club culture in that sense. But other than that, everything is equal. And we provide a positive and speaking environment whereby we help people grow to become better speakers, better leaders. On top of that, we also have segments like we have someone to count the number of pause feelers, the oohs, the lahs, the okays, the alrights. We watch on TV every morning. On TV,
yeah.
We have a lot of professionals when they are being interviewed. Within that 3-minute segment, we can have as many as 20, 30 hours. And because at our meetings we have people counting them, we become so conscious of them that ultimately we have less and less of them, so that our speech making is becoming more effective.
We've got to go to break now, but when we come back, we're going to start talking a bit about the specifics, communication first, and then we'll move into leadership. But for right now, we're going to commercials, but stay tuned to The Perspective. Hi, I'm Blaise Hope at the World Economic Forum, and with me is Hans-Paul Birkner, the Global Chairman of the Boston Consulting Group. Thanks for joining us. You're also one of the co-chairs of this meeting, and the theme is anchoring trust in Southeast Asia. How is trust going in Indonesia?
Well, I think, trust is the outcome. It's the result of many activities from the various stakeholders. And I think what we've seen over the last 15, 20 years in Indonesia has been a remarkable positive development. And so I would say we are on a good path. Of course, there's still a lot to do between the private and the public sector, between the general public and public institutions. But I think in general, we're on a good path.
Do you think there's enough harmonization going on in between institutions, or is that a weak spot?
Well, I think, what does harmonization mean? I think what is very important is that we create a level playing field, that we have openness of the economy, the society, so that everybody can participate, and that there is the rule of law, so that people really know that they play by the same rules. And if somebody does not, you can go to the court, you can get a fair ruling. And I think that needs to continue to develop, not just here in Indonesia, but around the world.
Well, let's talk a bit more about rule of law. What issues do you see here right now and within the wider ASEAN community?
Well, I think the key element, and obviously the different countries in Southeast Asia are at very different stages. I think we need to strengthen the role of courts. We have to strengthen their independence. We have to make sure that people can really challenge the government, and government can challenge private players, and then get rulings according to the law. And I think there is still a lot of skepticism whether the rulings are fair, whether individuals, especially when you are a small private enterprise, small, medium enterprise, really challenge bigger enterprises or challenge government institutions. I think there a lot of progress can still be made, but I think we have seen enormous progress over the last 15, 20 years, as I said before.
Do you see Indonesia as being in another age of reformation? You said it improved over the last 15, 20 years. Does it look good going forward? Or?
No, absolutely. I think there is a lot of expectation, of course, with the new government, with President Jokowi. I think people really hope that Indonesia will take the next step. I think also the Asian economic community, I think, creates a lot of expectations, certainly from outside the region, but also within the region. I think the more the countries open up to each other, the more they provide opportunities for each other, I think the more the whole region can benefit. It can be really a win-win. Now, I know that people are worried about what happens to special positions, maybe small farmers, small businesses. Will we be able to compete with competitors coming from other countries from the region or even from multinationals? And people try to predict who will be the winners, who will be the losers. I think the experience shows from the past that it's very difficult to predict the winners. I remember discussions before NAFTA was established, the North American Treaty Organization between US, Canada and Mexico. Many people in Mexico were very worried we have no chance against the US. And who has been the main beneficiary? It has been Mexico. I remember when Spain entered the European Union, there was a lot of worries about Spanish companies not being able to compete, and actually it was an enormous boost for growth, for economic development in Spain when they joined the European Union, even though initially, of course, there were some frictions and some initial challenges.
Well, you speak about leveling the playing field, and will there be losers?
Well, I think people have to change. I think when there is more openness, more competition, there will be, of course, some people who will lose, but it's very difficult to predict who that will be up front. I think it's very important that people see the opportunity to change, also see the need to change, and if they do so, they can really benefit from this, and everybody can benefit. So it can be really a win-win rather than, some will lose big and some will gain big. I think the issue really is to make sure that people do try to live up to the challenges, make necessary changes, become competitive, and therefore I think raise the level of effectiveness and efficiency of the whole economy and the whole region.
How can you pursue this in such a way that it doesn't just benefit conglomerates that already have the ability to reach beyond their borders and make sure that small businesses are getting it too, because conglomerates are extremely powerful.
Well, I think that the key element is that the conglomerates, the big companies, usually benefit from heavy regulation. Okay. Because they have the departments, they have the lawyers, they have the specialists to address those regulations. Whereas regulations, whether it's on the environment, whether it's on special processes, really hurt the small and mid-sized companies because they don't have the capability to deal with it. That's why I think deregulation, opening up, level playing field really benefits much more the small and mid-sized companies than the big ones, because the big ones have been in a position to deal with the challenges anyway. For them, closed borders can be overcome. For the small and mid-sized companies, that was always very difficult.
If you've got a situation where something like a volatile rupiah brings protectionist sympathies into power, I mean, is it not possible that there could be some serious shocks to an economy by suddenly facing outside competition? Is there any credence to that?
Well, I'm sure also in the ASEAN economic community there are transition periods. But I think if you want to protect certain areas, like in the European Union, agriculture was a big area for protection, and it meant that in many places agriculture was not very productive, and you really slowed down the increase in productivity. And so I think one needs to be very thoughtful. Protecting the status quo usually means lower efficiency, actually lower productivity, and lower standard of living. And so I think an important element of this opening up really is about creating the pressure for increasing productivity.
Okay, well, let me hold you there. We've got to go to break, but we'll be right back in just a minute with Hans-Paul Birkner from Boston Consulting Group.
about the fear of the ASEAN Economic Community. There was a movement to consolidate the assets of state-owned banks in order to prepare themselves to buff against greater competition, to be able to face up to their ASEAN rivals. The Vice President Yusuf Kala has just dismissed that, saying that they won't be, that they'll be going it alone. Do you see any Indonesian banks have something that they can sell to the outside Indonesia immediately?
Well, first of all, I think we have to recognize that banking is a very local business. The local banks have an enormous advantage because they know the customers, they have usually the trust of the customers, they have a broad network that covers the whole country. And so I think the fear that people from the outside will come in and take away customers and business, I think is overblown. I think when you look at most countries around the world, I think the domestic banks really dominate the business. And the foreigners who have made inroads, big inroads or significant inroads, are more the exception than the rule. That's why I think the worry that suddenly the MNCs are coming in or other banks, big banks coming in and blowing us out of the market, I think is usually, I would say, unrealistic.
Well, are there sectors that you would say it is somewhat realistic that there will be a big shake-up that they aren't efficient enough? Do you think there's any that could actually have the local industry lose out? Are there instances in other economic agreements where some countries' industries have lost out?
Well, I think you've seen a number of countries, for example, in the UK, where the automotive industry is essentially dominated by international players, and there is no local industry left. But there are quite actually a lot of local British factories and also research centers and great brands from the UK, even though they are now owned by foreign companies that really are strong players in the market. So I think the question is, what does it really mean, foreign players taking over? Are they wiping out the industry? Is nothing left here? Or are they taking over companies, making them much more productive, and maybe dominating the market and maybe even exporting so that lots of local people get jobs? So I think one needs to really think about what is the threat. Yeah? What are you afraid of? Is somebody wiping something completely out? Or you're getting people who are taking over local companies and making them stronger, better employers, larger employers, much more productive, and also even big exporters. I think that is something that one has to take into consideration before making big statements about the dangers of being wiped out.
Do you think Indonesia will benefit from transfer of talent from within ASEAN?
I think everybody benefits from transfer of talent. I think when you look to Europe, North America, I think they have been benefited enormously from people coming from Asia. The Indians, the Chinese who are really building big business in Silicon Valley. I think it has been enormous benefit. So they have not replaced people. They have really enlarged the scope of companies, of entrepreneurship in the US. And I think that is also what could very well happen in Indonesia. I think the more you worry about, we need to defend ourselves, we will be replaced. I think the more you lose out on this enormous influx of talent, of entrepreneurship, of initiative. And I think one needs to be much more open and much more willing to embrace the influx because it really also strengthens the local economy.
What do you think can be done domestically to help people embrace it at the ground level?
I think the most important thing, of course, is experience. I mean, we talked about trust. Mm-hmm. Trust does not come because I make a big statement. Make big declarations. I think trust comes from really having the experience. When you find that foreign companies are bringing people to build businesses here, they employ lots of Indonesians, they will also train them, they will make them stronger, some of them may even then build their own business and so forth. People sense that they have benefited from that, and I think that is ultimately what is needed. The experience, and I think we see this everywhere in the world. The more people interact with foreigners, yeah, the more I think they see the benefits. Those who have no interaction, who have no experience, are the most averse. And that's why I think in order to overcome the aversion, I think it is important to create as many interaction and as many experience as possible.
Would you consider Indonesia somewhat closed?
Well, I think you know, there have been messages here and there about language, about visa and so forth. But I think ultimately the government really wants to get things done. I think the message also from the minister this morning has been very positive and very well received. I think we will see Indonesia also opening up and Indonesia benefiting a lot, no matter what any analysis by any institution has been saying.
And just to touch on it quickly, the slowdown in the Chinese economy, do you think that that's going to impact the integration? Or do you think that it will force other industries to come to the fore as opposed to export resources?
Well, I think clearly the commodities have been dominating quite a number of economies and the export of commodities to China. But I think what we've also seen is quite a number of industries have moved from China, or part of the production, to Vietnam, to Indonesia, to Thailand, now also to Myanmar, Bangladesh and so forth. And I think that's a very positive development. As China continues to develop and moving up the value chain, I think other entities will move, or some entities will move to Southeast Asia and expand there. But I think we should also see Southeast Asia being part of a large Asian ecosystem, yeah, where lots of suppliers really interact with each other and depend on each other. And the more that is happening, the more everybody will benefit. Now, the commodities are only one part, and I think ideally you would like Southeast Asia, and especially also Indonesia, to overcome that and to be a much more important part of the supply chain beyond commodities. And I think it's happening. It's happening in automotive, it's happening in motorcycles, and happening in a number of industries already, consumer goods. And I think there's a lot more opportunity for that, given that also there's a very large domestic market. But I think the key issue is, let's build it. Let's try to move forward rather than take a wait-and-see attitude and try to protect of what you have, because no matter what you do, the others will move on.
What about digital infrastructure? Indonesia has a massively young population, telecommunications is expanding, more smartphones are expanding. We'll bring it back to it when we come back, but do you see Indonesia being the leader in that?
Well, I'm not sure whether it's a leader yet, but I think it has the opportunity because Indonesia has 17,000 islands. So I think mobile telephony is a massive lever for bringing education, health, a lot of information, a lot of services to those different islands, and really move Indonesia to a completely new level. And because of necessity, I think Indonesia can benefit enormously from that.
Well, let me hold you there. We will revisit that in just a minute when we come back on Berita Satu. I'm at the World Economic Forum here in Jakarta. Welcome back. I'm at the World Economic Forum here in Jakarta with Hans-Paul Berkner, the Global Chairman of Boston Consulting Group. We're talking about Indonesia, ASEAN, and the ASEAN Economic Community, which comes into force this year. We touched off on telecommunications and digital infrastructure, and you started telling me how Indonesia could be the leader. 17,000 islands. How can that?
Well, you know, of course, when you think about financial inclusion, that means, you know, giving people an account. You can do this via mobile phones. Mm-hmm. How can you reach out to people on maybe not 17,000 islands, because not all of them are inhabited, but I think you know, you can really bring education via online to a lot more students, good quality education. Of course, you need also some teachers on the ground, but I think a lot more of the rollout can happen via technology, healthcare. I think lots of services really are, I think, are able to be digitized and brought to the people much faster much more information to farmers, to people, so that they have more transparency, where to buy, at what price, where to sell at what price. So I think it really enables people to a much larger extent, and I think especially to the rural areas which you cannot access with the landlines, way too expensive. I think mobile telephony makes it much more possible, and I think you can really jump to the next level much faster.
So with mobile comms, no landlines, would you say that being the transfer of information is the most important initial stage?
Absolutely.
Would you say that's as true in other countries in ASEAN, or is it particularly the case in Indonesia?
Well, of course, the 17,000 island, force your hand to some extent.
Yeah.
But I think also really connecting the people in the rural areas. It's very important in Southeast Asia, across Southeast Asia. It's also very true in India, in China, and I think in Africa, where you really jump over a whole stage in development by using mobile telephony.
And there are obviously vast rural areas in the much more developed economies in Southeast Asia, Thailand, and
Absolutely.
those lower down,
Yes.
Myanmar. Well, let's move on a wider infrastructure topic, that being essential to it. What do you see? There's the maritime tollway that's being proposed, there's all these massive projects, and then there's the 35,000 megawatts in 5 years. In order of priority, I mean, how would you list it?
Well, I think, what is more important, the heart, the lung, or the liver, and so forth.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I think, of course, we need energy. We need a lot more power plants. But we also need the highways and the railroads to connect people. We need the ports who are able to handle the cargo, and also a lot more airports. I think it can be done. I think China has shown it. I think the issue is really making sure that the rules and regulations, the processes, the permissions really work quite effectively. Maybe not quite as fast as in China, because there it's unbelievable, but certainly faster than in the past, faster than in many developed countries, where sometimes it takes decades before you really build a highway. Not because you cannot do it physically, but before you really have cleared all the land. I think it takes a long time. I think especially in a densely populated area like here in Java, I think it's so important that you define the rules and that you really get going much faster. And I think that's what also President Jokowi will focus on.
Belief that your investment will be protected if you do put it
Absolutely. And I think, when we talk about the rule of law, it means commitments need to be kept, and they need to be kept for decades, especially when you talk about infrastructure.
Going on, moving a bit to maritime, the shipyard industry and protecting the local fisheries industry. There's been a lot of talk, there was the quote, burn the boats, of foreign fishing vessels caught. Do you think you can't tell someone what to do in their sovereign waters, but do you think that's in lieu of better regulations?
Well, I think the important thing is that, of course, Indonesia needs to be in control of its sovereign waters, of its the waters that it really can rule on, and that it really does that efficiently and effectively. So really be able to be in charge and to be controlled. I think that's perfectly right. It's right, and I think everybody else does it. And there, I think you need to be, have the means to do that. And so I think that is a perfectly fine procedure for Indonesia to take.
And the shipyard industry, do you think Indonesia could supplant?
I think shipyards have moved from Europe and North America to Japan, then to Korea, and now the Koreans are struggling with the Chinese and competing with the Chinese. I'm not in a position to say, Indonesia can build very effective and efficient and competitive shipyards. Possibly, I don't know.
One of many possibilities. We've just got a couple of minutes left. Perhaps let's just talk about Indonesia, the economy in general. What's your perspective?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to recognize that Southeast Asia, so the whole ASEAN region, is, together with China and India, the fastest growing region in the world. There are 600 million people, or more than 600 million people. It's, people-wise, as large or larger than Europe, as large as Latin America. So I think there's enormous potential. But of course, it's not, every year the same everywhere. I think we see uneven developments, even, country by country, but also over time. At the moment, growth has slowed a bit in Indonesia, but that does not diminish its medium to longer term prospects. I think the important thing is to make sure that the investments in infrastructure, in the people, really happen, that the institutions get strengthened, that the economy is further opening up, and therefore really gets the growth impetus that is needed. And I think if the government continues on the path that it has stated, we will see the growth impact over the coming years, and it will be very positive. And I think there's a huge interest of companies from the region in Indonesia, but also from outside the region. Because what we always forget, well, is that companies create value above all through profitable growth. Growth is so important, and here in the region, and especially Indonesia, we have it, whereas in Europe, Japan, growth will be much, much lower, and therefore, I think much tougher to achieve that growth.
Hans-Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Blaise, thank you.
Take care. Well, that's it for this interview. We'll see you next time. I'm Blaise Hope. Hi, I'm Blaise Hope. Welcome to The Perspective on Berita Satu. With me today in the studio is Julius Firdaus, famous from Australia's Got Talent. Julius, thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Blaise. Thank you for having me today.
Let's start. How did you end up on Australia's Got Talent?
Well, I had a scholarship before in Australia, in Sydney, and so I studied there, and then I was doing a performance in Sydney Opera House. There's this producer of the show came, and so he offered me to be on the show. Of course, I said yes. It's a big thing there in Australia. So
they
yeah,
go and find people.
Not necessarily. I was just so lucky because that kind of show is only for citizens, right? I am not a citizen of Australia, of course, but yeah, it still happened because somehow that happened.
Would you have considered going then, if you hadn't been approached?
Of course not. God, the line, the queue, the everything. It's madness. Have you ever?
I've never auditioned,
right?
But
yeah, do you know that kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah.
There'll be like thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people are queuing for that. I mean, in Indonesia, there's millions of people.
No, I know. I think at everyone, every audition, there's thousands. But when you were, before you went on, basically you tore the roof off in the end. What was the experience like going in? Did you kind of feel that you would be all right?
In what kind of way?
Were you worried that you were going to get hammered? That something would go wrong?
Oh, no, not really. Like here's the thing, I do music because I love it. I have no hidden agenda or whatsoever. I have no politics. I mean, music is music, yeah? It's not a politics. So one is doing music because the heart wants it. I would like to say it's a vocation to do art, and it's a calling. So no matter what, I'll still do it. And whatever comes in front of me, then I'll just, live and do my thing, which is music.
So what has music been to you in your life? What's the story?
It always has been my thing, I guess. When people ask me, when do you choose music? I can't remember when, because to me, it's music who always chose me, and so I believe in God, you know, the higher power in the universe, and I think the universe will always guide us to do what we meant to do in this world. And I think, to me, it's music. So music has always been the only thing that music has always been the only thing that I'm doing in my life. So I can't do anything else, really.
You got a scholarship to study music in Australia, to study opera?
Opera, yeah, classical singing.
How did you get that?
It's by recommendation. I know some people here in Jakarta, and then they recommend my name to the dean and the professor and the directors of the conservatorium. So they invited me to come there to do the audition, and then I got accepted. I was the only one who got a full scholarship, actually, in that conservatorium, so I'm really happy about it.
Which one's that?
It's the Australian International Conservatorium of Music in Sydney. Yeah, so
how long did you spend there?
Supposedly, it's a 4.5 hour study, but I finished my study in 2.5 years. Normal people normal student would take 4 to 5 subjects in a week. I took 11 to 12 subjects
Did you have time?
No, I don't have time to hang out nor like clubbing and things. But I love music, you know. So to me, it's not stressful at all because I love what I'm doing.
And there's some instruments as well, I assume.
Yeah.
So how many do you play?
I just played a bit of a piano, and that's it, really. And I sing.
You're singing, so singing is your big thing. There's a story that you relate on Australia's Got Talent, and it ends up with you being a countertenor. What is a countertenor?
Yeah, a countertenor is a mature guy, a mature man who can still sing. I mean, who can sing in a woman's range. So there is this weirdness in the vocal cords, and usually vocal cord works like this, you know, in full term. But for countertenor, it only works not even half of it, and you were born with it. It's kind of like a disability, but so it's a gift yet it's a curse. I mean, I don't know. It's just.
But this means that you'll be able to sing like this. There's not a term limit. You'll be able to sing as a countertenor forever.
Once you're a countertenor, you're a countertenor. The voice will always be there. The vocal cord is different than other guys. So it's very rare, you know, when they're having an audition in Europe. Usually, they will send the information to agents and to agency and to you know, they just blast it, and then there'll be like 20 countertenor came there, and that's it. We only have less than 20, less than 10 big countertenors in this world at the moment. So it's a very limited market. It's a very limited segment as well, and the repertoire also is very limited because countertenor usually only sing Baroque repertoire. No big fancy thing like Puccini, no flamboyant thing like Puccini or Verdi or things like that. Countertenor usually sings Mozart, Vivaldi, Handel, things like that. So a countertenor is a countertenor. You will always sing like that until the rest of your life because you were born like that. Like what Lady Gaga said, "Baby, I was born this way."
Well, look, let's take a break, and when we come back, let's hear it.
Okay.
See you in just a moment on The Perspective. Welcome back to The Perspective. I'm with Julius Firdaus, the singer and the countertenor. And we spoke before the break about what a countertenor is and how rare it is. You are one. Can you first just give me an example of of what it sounds like and how you warm up?
Sure. Yeah. Well, an example of my voice would be. Oh, I'm having a blank.
No, take your time. Take your time.
All right. It's weird, right? I mean, like a guy who's. Oh, thank you. But sometimes when I am doing my classes, my training with my vocal coaches, I'd stop and ask her.
Yeah.
Like, was that you or me? Like, because it doesn't sound like me, you know, my talking voice, but.
It's a slightly
it's
surreal.
unusual, don't you think?
It's like there's a separation.
Exactly.
As you're wondering
You're
where the noise is.
exactly right. I think it's my voice is my voice. I mean, the voice is the voice. I am me. So it's like I am two different personality. I haven't got used to it because I just discovered that I'm a concert tenor about 3 years ago. So this is a new thing for me.
Do you find it has a similar effect on each audience that you sing to?
Yeah. Usually, the first time I open my mouth and that voice comes out, when I look at their expression, they'll always look like that. Well, I mean, most of the time, they look like this. And then after like several seconds or several minutes, they start to get it, and they're like, oh, okay. So this is what he's doing. And usually they'll search a guy who can sing in a woman's range, and then they'll know that that we're countertenors, what a countertenor is. So it's very rare.
Are you the only one in Indonesia?
I think so, yeah. Because I never heard of any other countertenors. So
the music, especially the classical and operatic sort of society here, are quite small.
It is very small. I mean, it's not Indonesian culture, right? It's a Western culture.
Yeah.
The culture came from Europe. So we're learning. There are some good community, like good schooling, that the teacher studied in Vienna or in Germany or in Italy. But yeah, it's a very limited segment, I would say.
Do you think that in general the musical talent could be better developed, or I mean, do you see that there are massive obstacles beyond the just ordinary ones for someone who wants to pursue a musical career here?
It is very hard, especially if you want to build an operatic career. The first thing, the biggest problem, I think we don't have a proper opera house here, right? We have some concert hall, but we don't have a proper opera house here. And what else? Well, it's in Italian or in German or in French, you know. Language is always a barrier, which is fine, you know. I mean, language is language. You're used to it. But
if you're from England, you already accept the idea that any opera is not going to be in English, so it's okay. But
it's okay for you.
Yeah. So, but
you're from.
I'm
London.
English. I'm English
right.
via other places, but I'm from London. Cool. But as opposed to here, it would seem just completely mad to be listening to someone sing in a foreign language.
Exactly right. I mean, if you think, have you heard an opera called Turandot? It's a story about Chinese princess. It's crazy. I think it's really crazy. It's a story about Chinese princess, but it's sang in Italian. The setting is in Chinese. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, but you know,
who wrote it?
Well, the story is a novel by a very famous author, but the composer is Puccini. Puccini composed the whole opera, and it is one of the, you know, the song Nessun Dorma?
Yes.
Nessun Dorma, okay. Nessun Dorma. Yeah. Well, it came from that opera.
Where who are the composers, the writers that you hold in the highest regard, the ones that you take the most pleasure singing?
It's easy, as everybody else would think this way. Mozart.
Is it Così fan tutte?
Oh yeah, Così fan tutte is one of my favorite. But I love Die Zauberflöte better, you know, the magic flute. with the famous song. I love that. I think the story is very cheeky. You know, Mozart is trying to tell the politics situation that day. I mean, it's awesome. You know, only musicians can do that kind of thing without offending others and still give a good laugh. Well, if you like opera and you understand the story, you will laugh because it's very funny. It is a very, very funny comical opera. So I love Mozart and Vivaldi, and I love it. I love all composers, really.
Would you compare it, the storytelling theme to Wayang or something here?
Sadly, now this is very ironic. I don't really understand Wayang or gamelan or sinden. It's traditional singing way. I am dying to learn about my own culture. Really, I am dying. I mean, I love batik. I love culture. I met some Indonesian traditional artists. It's fascinating, you know. I mean, the Balinese dancing and things like that. But I never got a chance to learn because I have always been focusing. I have always been focusing on this kind of music, the Western culture, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, but we're living in such privileged era, I think, where time and distance is not a big problem anymore, right? I can just go to Vienna now and be in Vienna by tomorrow and have a sessions there, and it's awesome. I love it. I love to live in this area, and I mean to live in this era. And if you don't know anything, you could just like stop this interview and Google about countertenors and about everything, because we live in such privileged era, right?
Yeah.
Information is very easy to get now.
Your career it is working well. It's going well, and you've appeared on major TV shows here, on talent shows. It's out there. What's your status now among the Indonesian public?
Well, as I said before, opera is a very limited segment. We have a very high-end market. It is only for those who had studied in overseas, usually Europe, or those who understand what the culture is or speak the languages. So to the mainstream market, I am not acceptable here. That's why I'm working with one major composer in Indonesia. His name is Badai Krispati. Have you heard of him?
I think I have seen the name.
Krispati is one of the biggest band here. So I'm working with the composer, with the head of the band, and we're making a single together. We're writing a song together, and it's gonna
in Indonesia.
In Indonesia, yeah. I just got back here like about 3-4 months ago, right? So I'm trying to work really, really fast, and the song is on progress now. Next week we will record the orchestra section, which is exciting, of course.
Of course. All right, we're going to take one final break, but join us in just a moment on The Perspective. Actually, sorry, stop. I want to do that again. Can I ask you to sing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, then I'll tease that we're going to ask you that. We're going to see you to sing.
All right.
But you take a minute in between. Join us again in a minute on The Perspective, where Julius Firdaus will be singing in his countertenor voice. Welcome back to The Perspective on Berita Satu. I'm Blaise with Julius Firdaus, the countertenor singer, star of Australia's Got Talent and now Indonesian television and culture. Well, we've been speaking about your voice. We've heard a snippet of it from your warm-up routine. And normally we just talk on this show, but I'd love to hear you sing.
Oh, cool.
So we spoke Nessun Dorma. Everyone knows this.
Yeah.
Are you ready to give us something?
Oh, how can I say no to you? How can I say no to Berita Satu? You guys have been so nice to me. So yeah, sure. You ready?
You guys ready? Okay.
Nessun dorma, sun dorma, ma il mio mistero è chiuso in me, il nome mio è son soprano, That's a bit too high, yeah, for a morning show.
Oh no, we will run this the whole time.
All
Everyone
right.
will be ready.
Oh my God, no.
It's quite an experience to be sitting next to that. God, the power. Do you feel that?
Well, I am holding back a little bit because you know, when I have to sing in a big opera house, in a proper opera house, then I will give my all. But I think opera singers, sometimes we need to be smart to learn a little bit about the acoustic, you know. I mean, I'm sorry.
You think about it. You want to perform to it.
Of course. Like before I have to sing in a venue, I will always come and try to do some warm up and learn how does the building wants me to sing, where to project my voice and things like that. Because opera singers, we are trained to sing without a microphone in a building that can fit like 3,000 people. You have to sing on top of the usually like about maybe 50 people playing on the orchestra, and maybe hundreds of people singing in the choir. So the soloist, you need to be able to project your voice so they can still hear you.
The guy at the very back has to be able to hear
Exactly right. No microphone, yeah, and in such a big So if the reason why opera singers doesn't sound pleasant all the time because they have to sing. They all the time, and if they are singing in such big, in such a small venue, of course people will. That is too loud, right?
You got to.
So yeah, I hold back a little bit.
No, it was great though. I mean, I remember when I was at school, very young. They took us, on a little school trip. We went to, I can't remember what opera house, but in London, some venue in London, and that night there was an opera, and we met one of the singers, a woman, and she would not speak.
Yeah.
And she said, look, and they just said, look, she's not going to speak to you. She's got to save her voice.
Yeah.
What's the level of preparation that you go through before a performance on the scale of an opera house, where you've really got to go for it? I'd like to note, by the way, that you were sitting down as well, which impressed me. But yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, opera singers usually we don't talk like for the whole day. We do our stretching, our body movement and body stretch in the morning. If we have to perform that day, we have to. We're using our muscles, and after that we will do our warm up just to check whether the voice is there, whether the placement is there, whether everything is right or not. Because we're human, we tend to change day by day. So if we feel like, oh, I got it today, I got it, the voice is there. It is, usually when the voice is easy to work with, then you need to worry about nothing. So you will just like eat good food and had a great day, really enjoying your day, and not to speak that much. Usually opera singers, we don't talk on the day that we're going to perform.
What do you eat?
So, well, a real opera singer, a real professional opera singers, usually they just eat like bananas and steak and things like that. Pretty boring, really. But I'm Asian, yeah, so I love chili and I love, rendang and padang,
How long before a performance do you
have you
start?
tried Indonesia?
I eat every day.
Cool.
I mix
nice,
about
right?
half and half, Western and Indonesian.
And you can stand the.
Oh yeah, I forced myself to get used to it when I arrived. I'm fully. My taste is.
Do you have any favorite
brutalized.
Indonesian food?
Favorite? No.
No?
I had a fish in Aceh that I still think about.
Where?
I went in Aceh. I
Aceh.
ate
Wow.
I
You went
ate
to
a
Aceh?
fish.
I never even been to Aceh.
Yeah, I just for a weekend, but I ate a fish there that I still think about, and I thought I wish I could find that.
Cool. Let's go there.
But I always want to try new stuff. I find the standard ware, like nasi goreng, it's nice, but a bit boring. I like the exotic. But this is about you. So let me turn it back.
Well, food is about me as well. I love food, man.
But is there a certain point before you go on that you've got to make sure there's just not substance in your system? You've got to. Yeah.
It's more to the body stretch. Like you need to stretch your hamstring, your calf even, and your lower body, because all those energies always comes from the lower body. So this part up needs to be really nothing to do.
Free.
Yeah, it needs to be like as free as possible. While this part, you need to squinch as hard as you can, especially when you have to sing a high notes with a long phrase string. Then you really need to. It's kind of like holding your pee. Can I say pee?
Yeah, that's not that's
right.
Tame enough, I think. So your entire body's engaged when you're going, and
of course.
Are you thinking about anything?
What are you trying to say, Blaise?
No. Do you kind of go into a fugue state?
Of course, I was just teasing you. Yeah, of course, I do think about something like because to sing is to work with your imagination. You need to think as if there's like you are singing to a spot like far away, and you need to project your voice there. In terms of engaging my diaphragm, I always imagine that I'm doing a deadlift.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I sing, when we sing, not just me, but all opera singers, we will in classes, in our training, we sing while carrying some stuff. So doing push up while singing and things like that.
Well, we're running out of time. But thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. You're welcome. You're more than welcome.
If it's all right, Ave Maria. Can we end with a line?
Sure. Of course. Of course. Is that enough?
That's not. Julius, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Well, that's it for now on The Perspective. Join us next time. So is this in terms of influencing curriculum directly or more the ideology of teachers?
So it's really more on the actors because regardless of what the content of the curriculum, I think it is important who are standing in front of the classrooms. So we have interesting people delivering content packaged in an interesting way, in this case a curriculum, then I think our kids will be really excited to learn.
And this is mainly primary and secondary education?
Mostly primary and secondary education, yes. I believe that's the formative years where you get all the values, all the ideologies, and you have certain perspectives of the world. It's shaped throughout the years, without discounting the parents' involvement, of course, because they are the primary influencer, I think, in the way children think.
How long has this organization been going?
Almost a year. is very new. It's an extension of a master's research actually. So I looked into the supply and demand of elementary school teachers, and the interesting finding is not just that we don't have enough teachers, but we don't have enough qualified teachers. Teachers who can speak English, teachers who can manage a classroom well. Now we go with the motto reimagine teaching because we want to really just deconstruct or de-learn what we know about teachers, because we need to make the profession a really attractive profession. So we have young graduates, high school graduates wanting to become teachers. Because right now, most of the teachers, they're there by chance, not really by choice. So that already poses an initial challenge to further reform in the education system.
You mentioned being able to speak English. What are the criteria for teachers to be a part of your program?
Yes, so I think with the English acquisition in Indonesia, I think the trend is more technical in a sense. Like I grew up here, I learned more about grammar, about vocabularies without really connecting the dots between the knowledge. And this is not just in the acquisition of English language, I think this applies to all knowledge in Indonesia. We're bombarded by facts, by what year that the Dutch came, or how many years does the war last, for instance. But then it's not, we never really connect all the pieces of information to make it meaningful. And same thing with English skills. Like we have the grammar, we have the sentence construction skills, for instance, but we don't make it useful, we don't make it meaningful for tangible purposes. So that's where I think we need to shift a little bit on how we approach the content of our education system.
Sort of a jigsaw puzzle with just the crucial pieces missing?
Yes, you need to spend time to put all the pieces together, right? And this spending time, it takes persistence, as I was saying at the panel earlier, how it's so easy to just lose track and to fall off from the system. Because as you see with children, right, they are in school, but then the enrollment rate in primary school to secondary school drops very, very rapidly. And I see opportunity cost over there. They're not in school because they would rather spend 5 hours on the street, earning some money and actually providing tangible cash for the family to eat, because we're not a really rich nation. We still have poverty to tackle, so that comes in the way of everything, including schooling.
How do you get educators then? How do you get the right ones that fit your program?
The right teachers, you mean? It's really tricky, but I really applaud open-mindedness because I feel in the spirit of the forum, we learn from many people, private sectors, government officials, young people. We have the global shapers represented here. We're all under 30, and we want to learn from each other. So that open-mindedness is something that I really appreciate in teachers, and once it's there, I think that is the start that we can do more things.
What is the ultimate goal? What tangible goal are you aiming for with this program as a milestone?
For a really, really long term, I imagine that people actually fighting to be teachers in this country. Teaching will be a competitive job that only the best and brightest could get into. So that takes a long way, of course, and that takes many, many stakeholders to play a role in this. I mean, with the public sectors, I think Pak Anies is doing a really good job with teachers' empowerment and really just voicing out that we need strong individuals in the classroom. But then again, we also need private sectors to get into, to open opportunities to really just help people to see that we need to appreciate teachers more. Because with that increase in social prestige, I believe that we all will be interested, because we're under peer pressure anyways. When you graduate from high school, you're still at the fluid point of life, and yeah, we can leverage on the idealism of our young people, because I do believe that we all care about Indonesia. That's evident in Twitter conversation and how everyone was just so on fire about coins for Australia, for instance, about the presidential election.
Well, great. Thanks so much, Amanda. We've got to toss back to the studio.
Of course.
But pleasure. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome back. I'm still with Amanda Whitmardono from We the Teachers. So let's move on. We want to talk a bit about youth. These are the people that we're trying to educate. What's special about Indonesia's youth?
We're very talkative. Our Facebook and Twitter engagement is probably the highest, among the highest around the world. And we're not scared to voice out our opinion. And that is something that we can leverage on, really. I mean, if you throw one good message, one really positive message, one campaign, for instance, the youth will just pick up on it, and then there will be real movements. And democracy is growing in Indonesia, and you can't ignore really the voice of youth, the voice of the mass. So that's where we come in.
Where did your inspiration come from? Is there any chance you started about a year ago?
Yes.
Was that in the run-up to the election?
No, not really. I mean, my passion is in the classroom, it's with education. And I got to see education both from an internal domestic point of view and also from a helicopter point of view, where there are many other stakeholders engaged. There are the parents, there are the government, of course, there are the investors doing education. So it's more on seeing a lot of knots in the system and trying to be the little solution to that, hopefully big.
Trying to untie the knots?
I hope so, little by little. As I mentioned, it takes time, it takes persistence, so it's not something that is going to happen, in very, very instantly. And I know that we live in a culture of instancy. It's very easy to get self-approval, for instance, through social media. Back to our topic earlier, it's very easy to just share personal things, but I do not want to discount the importance of process, that it all takes experience, it all takes rigidity, resilience to make changes happen on the ground level.
How does your operation break down? I mean, is it all online, or do you have centers on the ground level?
It's mostly on the ground level. We're trying to bring it up online, but I would say the penetration in terms of teachers specifically wouldn't be as high as other Indonesians. They're busy with administrative work, they're busy with parental communication, for instance, so not many teachers are really hooked on emails. Facebook groups is popular, but just trying to make communications work online is another challenge that we need to tackle too.
Now, is there a heavy bias towards the amount of teachers in Java as opposed to Eastern Indonesia?
Yes. I think when you talk about Indonesia in general, it's very different in different parts. I'm actually, I wouldn't say I'm opposed, but then I feel like there needs to be a national standard, but then curriculum and local content needs to be highlighted even more. Because as we look throughout different parts of Indonesia, the needs are different, the culture is different, the way we perceive teachers are different. Teachers are more appreciated in other parts of Jakarta, and the education that these children need as they grow up and enter the job market will be different as well. So I think there needs to be a strong local content in our formal schoolings.
Do you think bringing in iPads into schools and that sort of thing is going to be helpful in the long run, or do you think it's just more about the attitudes?
In the long run, definitely it will be helpful, because you all know that technology makes geography irrelevant. It helps in a lot of things. But it's important as well to not forget the roots of education, which is human interaction, which is all those core values of respect, of tradition, of really being diligent in doing your work. Those are the things that still needs to be there. Then iPad can come in, and then it wouldn't be a disruption towards what's already happening, but it will actually be a tool, a segue towards a more effective education service.
Okay, well, we've got to go to break again, but we'll be back in just a minute with Amanda Widamono. Welcome back. I'm Blaise Hope. I'm here at the World Economic Forum with Amanda Widamono, the founder of We the Teachers, and we're talking about education, but also the big underlining factor, especially here at the forum and coming up to this, has been talent. And there's a large young population, but how do you turn that into a talent pool for the country to draw on?
Yeah. One interesting fact about talent pool and employment in Indonesia is that underemployment rate is at 34%. Now, what does this mean? This means that people who have a certain capacity, they're not at the job where their maximum capacity can be realized, right? Or you have certain people who are trained in forestry, but they're not filling jobs in the field. They go to banks or they go to engineering or other sorts of jobs. Now this is dangerous in the long term because it puts a ceiling towards personal and professional growth. Because then you stay comfortable in that zone, and then you just don't push yourself. You don't put high expectations on yourself and on the job market. So that's where we can definitely work with the schoolings, with the vocational skills that can be transferred through not really a long institution, long-term schools, but on-the-job skills that can be used directly on the job.
So, do you advocate apprenticeships?
For sure, yes. Being immersed directly to the job is important, but also having the basic skills, and skills here not just technical, but also the soft skills, like how do you reply emails, how do you talk to people. Those are also missing, I think, within the human resources.
If you go into any bookstore here, there's a massive, always a massive section, I guess this is fairly common, about sort of self-help, self-business. Is that something that you attempt to address as an organization?
Yes.
This sort of self-efficacy and
Yes.
self-belief.
Firstly, I envy other countries for having so many more bookstores than Indonesia. It's very hard to get books over here, but with self-help, that's one thing. With bureaucracy, one of the complaints or one of the challenges with Indonesia is that our bureaucracy gets in the way of many things. I see bureaucracy comes back to one issue of people not wanting to take responsibility of what they do, and that's because they don't believe that they're capable of making the responsibility of, if they come into a risk or a danger, they could manage through it, that they could collaborate with other people to get through things, that decisions need to be made. So that comes to your point about self-efficacy. That's one of my favorite words actually, because that implies really authority of self, that we are capable, that we can do something about this status quo. And imagine if we go to rural villages and we talk about self-efficacy and we successfully nurture this in the children, then they will be able to have fresher perspectives on things surrounding them, because the challenges that they face every day is actually really sad. Parents just working long hours to provide food at the table. They're living in a quarter just like that. They might not play, they don't have access to what we have right now in the forum, for instance. So it can be a saturating situation, but then with self-efficacy, I think that can shed some lights.
When you talk about trying to bring in self-belief, trying to bring in education, what role do you think religion can play in the organization, if any at all?
Yes. Religious affairs, I think, has been a big part of Indonesia, because we all declare our religion, we're built on certain religious values. I see religion more as providing strong core foundations of how you think. I believe that our religions teach good things. It teaches tolerance, for instance, it teaches respect for other people. And even those values are quite missing to some extent, especially in urban spots in the country. Now, if we go back to religion, then we can go back to those values without really being extreme about it, because that's something dangerous as well when you get really too hyped about something, right? I mean, part of the forum is learning from other sectors, like you link education and employment, you link technology and health issues, you link environment and policy making. So everything has to be connected and interdisciplinary, and this is where our religion can be part of that, to strengthening really the core of our nation's children.
Do you see education as the key to most of Indonesia's current issues?
Definitely. With education, I mean, you have most of the young generation on your hand. You can do anything with them. So it's imperative what we are going to deliver to them is really not a small thing. And as I was saying at the panel, the faith in schooling is really high. You talk to many parents and they still want to put their kids through college. Why? To get a diploma, to get a job. So the faith is there. We need to leverage on education to help parents to stay persistent, so the kids could stay in school, they could actually graduate, they could have some sense of confidence. Then they could contribute more productively to our country's politics, social and economy condition.
What do you need from the government? for that to
What
happen?
do I need from the government? Support, of course, because the government has an authority, really. You know, you say A and then everybody will really respect you and follow you. So just championing these movements to bring it to the grassroots level, because what we do, I think, civil society, we bring all the big ideas to the ground level. We make it tangible, we make it work, and we help implement it in some way. But then the scaling up, that requires some kind of governmental power or authority to like, all right, this is good, I trust you, trust is also important, and we're going to scale it up to benefit the larger Indonesian population.
Is it just a case of increasing funding, or are there bureaucratic legal obstacles?
I would say it's more on legal obstacles. As Pak Budi was mentioning earlier, a big portion of our GDP is contributed from the private sector. So private sectors could play more roles in terms of funding. But with the government is really the authority and the trust on certain people with good ideas. There are so many good ideas here, but who's the executor, right? Who's actually doing things well and effectively, that you have to be selective. And once you are selective, then you keep the talent pool. So we work together for really a better Indonesia.
Well, what can the private sector do to develop the talent pool here?
Yes, so apprenticeship is probably one thing. We have a lot of great leaders here. I heard yesterday that great leaders need to be comfortable in their own skin to share their knowledge to the younger ones. So providing opportunity for them to shadow these leaders, for instance, to learn really how things work in the office space. How is it in the job market? How is this as you go through your day? You know, it's not just you learning about all this physics rules, or really when you coach, you know, it's not just the programming side, but there's other things at work that needs to be learned as well.
So would you see possibly in the future you would bring teachers together to share skills and then use them maybe to select students and post those students to companies they have a relationship with?
Probably, but that's like what you were mentioning was very linear relationship. I like to see teachers more as actually honing them into becoming an individual rather than an employee or, you know, an economically productive citizen. So yes, I mean, distribution in terms of jobs, allocations, that's one thing, but also really just shaping one whole individual that is Indonesian in and out, in a sense that they have the values, but at the same time have the skills. I mean, ASEAN Economic Community, you know, our region is getting more connected, our world is getting more connected, and Indonesia needs to be ready. We have 250 million people on our hands.
Is there something that you want to get out of the next couple of days here for We the Teachers?
I think it's really getting advices from people on how to go about, because a lot of things that happen within the forum is exchange of really brilliant ideas, and this is utopia, I would say, in a sense that this only happens for a few days, and these are luxuries for all of us who are here. And it's good that the media is really reporting on what's going on in the forum, but just getting insights that I might miss or that other people's experiences have contributed. Because I was talking earlier to Shop how you can't buy experience. We're all young people here. I'm young people. I have other 29 fellow global shapers here, and we can definitely learn from the experiences that all other people, all other participants have have learned.
Right, great. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of the forum.
Thank you.
That's it from me for now. We're going to go off to lunch, and then I'll be back very soon. Over to you, Ben.